Although HPV16 E6 are extremely sensitive and specific biomarkers, obviously most people who have them will not develop cancer. So the positive predictive value is anywhere between, say, 10 and 25% at most. It depends on the population, obviously. And that would be a risk estimate for the next 5 years at the least. We definitely need further risk stratification among those who are HPV16 E6 seropositive to make this useful. The danger of such studies is always the balance of harms and benefits. Obviously, you can do a lot of harm with something like this. And so we basically decided to only use non-invasive procedures for our clinical study, visual inspection, palpation, ultrasound, but we did not perform any invasive procedures because we thought that was, given the circumstances, not justifiable. But since we didn't want to start a cohort from scratch, we were looking for a cohort that allowed doing this. And obviously that cohort had only been started recently. The cohort had to allow returning research results to the participants because this is a research assay, it's not a clinical assay. We had to be able to re-invite and re-consent patients then for this clinical study. We found these criteria to be met in the Hamburg City Health Study. It's a study that is run by the university clinics in Hamburg in northern Germany. It's a prospective city-based cohort. They aim at about 45,000 participants. They have enrolled about 18,000 now, started in 2016, men and women aged 45 and older. And we performed HPV serology for the first 5,000 participants, found 35 of those with available serum samples to be HPV16 E6 seropositive, 0.8%, exactly what we expected to find. And of those 35 individuals, 11, that is 0.3%, were seropositive for HPV16 E6 plus one other early protein. Most of these are positive for E2 on top of E6. And those were invited to non-invasive head and neck exams on a 6-monthly basis. That study has been published just about a week or two ago. The first participant that we identified here, the ID number 2, was identified at his first visit with a T2N1 size tumor. So that was what we now consider simply detection of a prevalent tumor. The second individual identified was the one here, ID number 1, diagnosed at the third visit, so an incident diagnosis, which we didn't see at the second visit, but also with a T2N1 size tumor. So we basically saw a relatively rapid increase in tumor size and lymph node involvement in this participant within 6 months that we didn't see at the second visit. And then the third individual is a female. She showed up at her second visit with hyperplasia at the base of tongue and a somewhat suspicious mucosal lesion. Not gave rise to more invasive examinations at the second visit. When the hyperplasia was still present at the third visit and this lesion was also visible, my clinical colleagues in Hamburg decided to perform a biopsy and then found this T1 size base of tongue cancer without lymph node involvement, which we would consider an incident diagnosis of early disease. The other 6 individuals undergo regular head and neck exams. 2 are lost to follow-up. We found another individual among the remaining 6 with an HPV OPC. So in summary, 3 out of 9 individuals were diagnosed with a stage 1 HPV OPC, acknowledging that stage 1 is a very broad definition of what these tumors look like. That was within 1.3 years of clinical follow-up, so about 3 to 4 years after the initial blood draw. They were free of symptoms at diagnosis. We do believe that multiple seropositivity may be a risk stratifier on top of single E6 seropositivity, and also the levels of antibodies may be actually a useful risk stratifier. So this is a proof of principle study, I guess, gives us some good ideas about how such a study could be done. What we will do next is we'll extend the study to invite the remaining 24 single E6 seropositives, because the bulk of the literature that's available actually looked at E6 only. So most of the risk estimates that we have been calculated for E6 single positives. And then we'll roll out the study to the next 10,000 participants of the cohort. We will add, which we haven't done in this proof of concept study, genital exams to rule out HPV-driven cancer or pre-cancer at other sites. We'll add liquid-based cytology for detection of circulating HPV DNA, also oral rinse and gargle samples for oral HPV DNA. We'll add imaging, MRI imaging, and also immunological markers, basically to study what's going on in these study participants when they have these antibodies prior to the potential development of HPV OPC. And the aim is really to come up with a biomarker combination that would maximize the positive predictive value for HPV OPC in a population that is initially screened with HPV16 E6 antibodies. And with this, I would like to thank everyone involved in the study, particularly Nicole Brenner from my lab, who did most of the work at our end, and the participants of the Hamburg City Health Study.